In this video, we're exploring the shocking price drops hitting Porsche 992.1 Carrera models. The market is changing faster than ever, and if you're thinking about buying or selling one of these cars, you need to see these numbers before making any decisions. Let's dive straight into our countdown of the 5 biggest Porsche 992.1 market trends of 2025. Number 5. Price stability is over. After staying strong at around $134,000 for nearly 18 months, the Porsche 992.1 Carrera market is finally seeing its first real price drop. Many Porsche owners thought these cars were bulletproof investments, but the data shows a different story unfolding. From 2022 to 2023, prices went down about 10%, but then they held steady through summer 2023, creating a false sense of security for many owners. That calm period is now completely finished. The numbers tell a clear story. Since September 2024, base Carreras fell 4.4% and Carrera S models dropped 7.1% compared to the previous year. Between May and November 2024, prices fell even more, with another 4.3% drop on base models and 5.2% on S variants. This is way more than the overall Porsche market average drop of 4% yearly. For context, a Porsche 992.1 Carrera S that was worth $148,000 in early 2023 might now be valued closer to $132,000, a significant $16,000 loss for owners. To understand how dramatic this shift is, we need to look at the pandemic period. During 2022, the supply chain crisis created artificial scarcity, with some dealerships marking up 992.1 Carreras by $15,000 to $20,000 over MSRP. Buyers were willing to pay these premiums just to skip the waiting lists. Fast forward to today, and those same cars are now selling below original MSRP in many cases. The market has completely reversed. What makes this especially concerning for current owners is the speed of the decline. Previous 911 generations typically saw much more gradual depreciation curves, but the 992.1 is dropping faster than expected. Some owners who bought at the peak are facing nearly 15% losses if they need to sell now, especially on higher option cars where the premium options are not holding their value as well as the base car. Number 4, this is a normal correction, not a crash. Despite the alarming headlines you might see online, what we're seeing with the 992.1 is actually a return to normal depreciation patterns after years of unusual market conditions. Octo Classic reports that this adjustment is mainly driven by natural early cycle depreciation, especially for newer 2023 models which sit in the steepest part of the depreciation curve. New luxury cars have always lost value quickly in their first few years, and the 992.1 is simply catching up to this reality after an extended honeymoon period. Let's look deeper at the inventory data. On major car listing sites, the number of used 992.1 Carreras increased by roughly 40% between January 2024 and January 2025. More supply naturally means lower prices, but this isn't because owners are panic selling. Rather, more of these cars are simply reaching the secondary market as their first owners complete their typical 2 to 3 year ownership cycles. Dealer discounting remains modest, with most cars selling with only 2 to 3% off their sticker price, far from the fire sale discounts we'd see in a true market crash. The time to sale metric is another important indicator. In 2023, the average 992.1 Carrera would sell within 24 days of listing. Today, that number has increased to about 38 days, indicating a cooling market but not a frozen one. Serious buyers are still out there. They're just negotiating harder and taking more time to decide. While the 992.1 is losing value faster than the 4% Porsche market average, it's still doing much better than many luxury sports cars that routinely lose 10 to 15% of their value each year. To put this in perspective, a new BMW M8 typically loses nearly 20% of its value in the first year alone, making the 992.1's performance look remarkably strong in comparison. Even within the Porsche lineup, the Panamera and Cayenne models typically depreciate much faster than any 911 variant. For example, first-generation Panameras lost over 35% of their value in just 3 years, while the 992.1 is on track to lose perhaps 15 to 18% over the same period. By these standards, the 911 remains an exceptionally solid store of value. Number 3, the trend is global. This isn't just happening in America, it's a worldwide pattern. Looking at data from Germany, the birthplace of Porsche, we see the same trends as in the US. The 992.1 lost about 5.5% of its value in 2024 in Germany, very close to what we're seeing in the American market. This synchronization across global markets suggests larger economic forces at work, not just regional preferences changing. In the United Kingdom, tracking data from major listing sites shows the average 992.1 Carrera asking price has fallen from £112,000 in late 2023 to around £105,000 today, representing a 6.25% decline that aligns closely with other markets. Even in markets like Australia and Japan, where luxury European cars typically hold their value better due to import costs and taxes, the 992.1 is showing similar depreciation patterns, with values down 4 to 6% year over year. There are some interesting regional differences worth noting. In Germany, the average 992.1 has higher mileage than its American counterpart, approximately 15,000 miles versus 11,000 miles for similarly aged examples. This suggests Europeans are more likely to drive their Porsches regularly than treating them as weekend cars or investments. The European market also shows greater enthusiasm for manual transmissions, with manual 992.1 examples commanding a 3 to 4% premium over PDK cars, while in America, the premium is negligible or even reversed in some regions. The Middle Eastern market tells an interesting story too. In Dubai, where supercars are abundant, the 992.1 has seen steeper declines closer to 8 to 9%, possibly because wealthy buyers there are more likely to chase the newest models. By contrast, in emerging luxury markets like Vietnam and Thailand, where Porsche has only recently established a strong presence, 992.1 models are holding their value better, with depreciation closer to 3% annually. But overall, the global pattern is unmistakable, with mid-single-digit declines across nearly all markets. Number 2, older 911 generations are doing much better. Here's where the story gets really interesting. While the 992.1 is seeing significant price drops, older generations of the 911 are holding their value amazingly well and in some cases even appreciating. This creates a fascinating market dynamic where newer doesn't necessarily mean more valuable. According to Octo Classic's comprehensive market analysis, the previous generation 991.2 lost less than 1% of its value for both base and S models over the past year, and the GTS versions actually went up 2.6% in price. Going back even further, the 991.1 models gained value, increasing 1.1% for base models and 2.8% for S variants. This counterintuitive pattern suggests that as the newest generation depreciates, more buyers are seeing value in slightly older models that offer nearly identical performance at a significant discount. The 997 series, now approaching classic status, is showing remarkable stability. The 997.1 base units rose 0.1% and S models gained 4.9% over the past year. The highly sought-after 997.2 GTS variants showed only marginal price fluctuations despite being over a decade old. For context, a well-maintained 2009 997.2 Carrera S with 40,000 miles now sells for around $72,000, representing incredible value retention for a 15-year-old sports car. Even the often criticized 996 generation, the first water-cooled 911, is mostly holding its value. CarVibe's data shows the 996.1 fell a mere 1.7% year-on-year between February and August 2023. The later 996.2 variant did slip 9.6% in that same window, but this appears to be related to specific issues with the intermediate shaft bearing rather than overall market trends. Why this stark difference between generations? Several factors are at play. First, older 911s have already completed their steep early depreciation, so they're naturally more stable. Second, many enthusiasts prefer the more analog driving experience and simpler technology of earlier generations. Third, there's the exclusivity factor. As production numbers for specialty models in older generations were typically lower than today's volumes, particularly the last of the hydraulic steering 911s like the 997.2. The most dramatic example of this generational value gap can be seen when comparing similarly optioned cars across generations. A 2020 992.1 Carrera S with about 15,000 miles currently trades around $125,000, while a 2019 991.2 Carrera S with similar mileage sells for about $118,000. That's just a 6% premium for the newer car despite significant technological advancements, suggesting the market sees these generations as more comparable than Porsche might want to admit. Number 1. Smart buying strategies for today's market. If you're looking to buy a 911 in the current market, the data points to some clear strategies that could save you tens of thousands of dollars. Let's break down the 5 smartest approaches based on all the market data we've analyzed. First, consider slightly older 992.1 models built in 2020, as they're only losing about 4% per year versus nearly 9% for 2023 models. The earliest 992.1 cars have already absorbed much of their initial depreciation hit, but offer virtually identical driving experiences to newer examples. A 2020 model with 20,000 miles might sell for $15,000 to $20,000 less than a 2023 with 5,000 miles, representing an incredible value when you consider the minimal differences between them. Look specifically for cars that have already had their first major service completed, as this represents another $2,000 to $3,000 in value. Second, look at previous generations like the 991.1, 991.2, and 997.1, which are only seeing 0 to 4% annual depreciation while still offering modern performance. The 991.2 Carrera S represents perhaps the sweet spot in today's market, with examples available between $110,000 to $120,000 that offer 95% of the 992.1's performance with significantly better value retention. For the true enthusiast, the 997.2 Carrera GTS with manual transmission combines analog driving thrills with modern reliability and has shown actual appreciation over the past 24 months. If you love cars and are having fun watching this analysis, drop a like and subscribe for more market insights that could save you thousands on your next purchase. Third, it might be smart to wait a few more months to see if prices stabilize further, especially as news about the next refresh approaches. Industry rumors suggest that Porsche will announce the 992.2 generation in late 2025, which typically creates downward pressure on current model prices. Historical patterns from previous generation transitions suggest that 992.1 prices could drop another 3 to 5% in the 6 months surrounding the new model announcement. If you're not in a hurry, patience could be rewarded with better selection and lower prices. Fourth, be strategic about options when shopping for a 992.1. Data shows that certain expensive factory options like ceramic brakes, which can add $8,000 to $10,000 to the new price, only retain about 30 to 40% of their value on the used market. By contrast, more modest options like the Sport Chrono package and Sport Exhaust tend to retain 60 to 70% of their new cost. Focus on cars with the right core options rather than fully loaded examples, as you'll often pay a disproportionate premium for those extras. Fifth, consider geographic arbitrage. There are significant regional price variations for identical 992.1 models. For example, our analysis found that 992.1 Carreras in Florida and Arizona tend to command 3 to 5% higher prices than identical cars in the Northeast or Midwest. This is partly due to better year-round driving conditions and partly because of higher concentrations of wealthy retirees in those regions. If you're willing to travel or ship a car, expanding your search radius can yield significant savings. Finally, a word of caution about the 996.2 models. While they represent tremendous value on paper, often selling for just $35,000 to $45,000, they require careful inspection before purchase. The intermediate shaft bearing issue that plagued many of these cars can lead to catastrophic engine failure if not addressed, potentially adding $15,000 to $20,000 in repair costs. Always verify that any 996 you're considering has either had this issue fixed or has documentation proving it has the updated bearing design. In summary, the Porsche 992.1 Carrera's 6 to 7% price drop in 2024 is a return to normal market conditions rather than a major problem. It's dropping more than 4% average across all Porsche models, but much less than the 10 to 15% typical for other luxury sports cars. Meanwhile, older 911 generations continue to perform well, showing the lasting appeal of the Porsche 911 lineup. Whether you're planning to sell or looking to buy, understanding these trends across different generations and regions is key to making a smart decision in today's Porsche market. There you have it, the 5 biggest Porsche 992.1 market trends that every buyer and seller needs to know in 2025. Which generation of 911 would you choose to buy right now based on these trends? Let us know in the comments below. Watch our next video on the top 10 biggest challenges facing Porsche in 2025.